Straight ahead on Law and Crime Daily. Major news in Britney Spears' conservatorship battle with her father.
He is choosing to step down.
But Spears' fight for freedom isn't over. What's next? And R. Kelly's latest request before trial. The singer's defense attorneys want testimony accusing R. Kelly of spreading herpes to young women kept out of court. A judge officially drops one of the charges against Harvey Weinstein, the disgraced producer now facing 10 sex crimes. Plus, is Robert Durst gearing up to point the finger at another possible murderer for the death of his best friend, Susan Berman?
And I said, Susie, it's Bobby, pick up the phone.
And
the punishment is death.
A convicted cop killer to be executed for murdering a sheriff's deputy and setting fire to his body. Law and Crime Daily covering court cases from coast to coast. Welcome everyone to Law and Crime Daily. I'm Brian Buckmeyer along with Terry Austin. Following a public war of words, Britney Spears' father agrees to step down as conservator of her estate. It's something the pop star has wanted for months. Law and Crime's Anjanette Levy is here with the latest and what Spears' lawyer has to say.
Yeah, Brian, Jamie Spears says he is willing to step down, but didn't give a timeline for when he may do so. Now Britney Spears' lawyer is declaring victory, but he says this is not over.
Britney Spears is getting her wish. Her father, Jamie, is willing to step down as conservator of her estate after 13 years. In new court documents, Jamie Spears' attorneys wrote he does not believe a public battle with his daughter would be in her best interest. And while he objects to the petition for his removal, he said he intends to work with the court and his daughter's new attorney to prepare for an orderly transition to a new conservator. California attorney Dina Dahl has been following the case.
He conceded without admitting that he should be removed, that it was the right thing to do.
I say free! You say Britney! Free! Britney! Free!
Britney Spears' fans have launched a movement to support her desire to end the conservatorship. Her father's willingness to step down came after a war of words with the conservator of Britney Spears' person, Jody Montgomery. Jamie Spears claiming Montgomery felt Britney needed to be placed in a psychiatric facility in June. But Montgomery's lawyer fired back in a statement saying at no time did Ms. Montgomery express to Mr. Spears that Ms. Spears would currently qualify for such a hold. Montgomery said she told Jamie she believed forcing Ms. Spears to take the stand to testify or to have her evaluated would move the needle in the wrong direction for her mental health. Attorney Dave Ring's take.
Well, Miss Montgomery comes back and says, wait a minute, I never said that. I never said that at all. I said I had some concerns about Britney's mental health. I never said they were that extreme. I think it makes Jamie Spears, I think it makes him look bad.
Hours after Jamie Spears said he was willing to step down, Britney Spears posted this photo on Instagram without a caption. Her attorney, Matthew Rosengart, calling this a major victory for Britney Spears and another step toward justice. He went on to say, we look forward to continuing our vigorous investigation into the conduct of Mr. Spears and others over the past 13 years, while he reaped millions of dollars from his daughter's estate. And I look forward to taking Mr. Spears' sworn deposition in the near future. Rosengart wants forensic accountant Jason Rubin appointed as conservator.
One of the allegations that he is apparently going to make is that the dad, Jamie Spears, improperly used some of Britney Spears' money, because that's the only reason to have a forensic accountant come in and account for all the money.
Jamie Spears was incredibly defiant in his court filing. He said the things he did were to protect his daughter's well-being and her reputation. He also said that if people knew the extent of the issues his daughter has had over the years, they would be praising him. The next court hearing for this case is on September 29th. Brian.
Thanks, Anjanette. Joining us today is Judge Susan Chris and Terry Austin. Your Honor, Jamie Spears said he would step down when the time is right, but as you heard, he asserted there's no reasonable explanation for his removal. Do you think that this decision is based, even in small part, to the Free Britney movement?
Absolutely, as well as the fact that she has a good, aggressive attorney, and now her dad has to do damage control for himself. I think there's strong evidence that he has enriched himself to her detriment, and he realizes that's coming out.
Yeah, all those accounting and those numbers are going to be very interesting to see when they come to light, to see how that money was moved and if he did, at least illegally or wrongfully, enrich himself. Terry, if or when Jamie steps down, does that then create a smoother transition or process for ending the conservatorship?
It will pave the way to end the conservatorship. This is a step-by-step process. Remember, Jamie was both in charge of the personal finances and her personal decisions about what she can do with herself, basically. And so he was removed as her personal conservator, and Jody Montgomery, as we heard, was replaced. And she works very closely, Jody does, with Britney and with Britney's mom. And I think that they will be able to work with the conservator and be able to ultimately end it. And if you have a CPA who's certified and working on the financial side, you have Jody Montgomery working on the personal side, I think ultimately this new attorney, who is very savvy and does know what he's doing, I think ultimately he will be able to get the entire conservatorship ended altogether.
Yeah, and you won't have Jamie Spears there pushing back as the conservator of the estate, so plus probably make it a lot easier. And Jeanette, wasn't there some news recently about the judge presiding over the case?
Yeah, there was an interesting bit of news, kind of a disturbing bit of news, actually. Judge Brenda Penny has been presiding over this case for many years, and she has been receiving some death threats and other types of threats, according to, she's been receiving threats. I don't know if they were death threats, but she's been receiving those threats, and the LA County Sheriff's Office is monitoring those. So there is a lot of passion surrounding this case, and it seems that some people are taking their passions and their anger out on the judge, which it probably is not the right thing to do in this case.
Yeah, definitely not the right thing, and I think Judge Chris will agree with me. Not the right thing to take it out on a judge in such a case. We'll obviously keep an eye out on the conservatorship for Britney Spears, because this is just one of many steps as it continues towards what we believe will be the ending of Britney Spears' conservatorship. Turning now to another development ahead of the start of R. Kelly's trial in New York. The singer's attorneys want testimony accusing him of spreading herpes to young women kept out of the court. Defense attorneys for R. Kelly are asking the judge to not allow Jane Doe 11 to testify she believes R. Kelly had herpes as early as 2003 because she says she contracted it from him. According to court documents, another accuser also plans to testify she contracted herpes from R. Kelly in 2009. R. Kelly's attorneys say by allowing such testimony in by a lay person as proof that R. Kelly had herpes in 2003 would be to circumvent the requirement of having an expert testify as to whether or not Mr. Kelly had herpes. A jury of 7 men and 5 women have been selected to hear the case. Opening statements are set to begin next Wednesday. Still ahead on Law and Crime Daily, a woman accused of killing her grandmother and her grandmother's boyfriend, where their bodies were later found. But first, Harvey Weinstein gains a legal victory, why the disgraced producer will be facing one less charge and one less accuser when he stands trial in Los Angeles. Next.
Hi, this is Dan Abrams with exciting news for all of our Law and Crime followers on YouTube. You can now get the live Law and Crime Network with YouTube TV for all of your daily live trial coverage, legal news, expert analysis, and original true crime programs. Subscribe to YouTube TV today and then locate Law and Crime in the channel guide. And for only $1.99 a month, you can add the network to your bundle. Watch Law and Crime every day with YouTube TV. We put you in the jury box.
Welcome back. Convicted rapist Harvey Weinstein has officially scored one legal win. A judge has affirmed her decision to drop one of the 11 charges against the disgraced movie producer.
There was no merit to count 5.
The judge officially dropped count 5, which accused Weinstein of sexual battery by restraint against a woman in May 2010. That brings the number of accusers in the indictment down to 4.
We expect that the defect in the prosecution's case on all the counts and all the Jane Doe's allegations are going to be revealed.
Weinstein was initially charged in January 2020. 6 months later, he was indicted by a grand jury. Judge Lisa Lynch ruled that prosecutors had not informed the grand jury that in those 6 months, the allegation had fallen outside the 10-year statute of limitations. Prosecutors disagreed.
This superseding indictment that we've obtained in this case is a continuation of everything that we've done before.
David Ring represents one of Weinstein's Los Angeles accusers. She testified at the grand jury proceedings, and Ring says she's prepared to testify again when Weinstein goes to trial.
She's hanging in there. It's been tough. It's been a long haul, and it's she's still very fearful of Harvey Weinstein, and she's very anxious about the process, but she is going to see it through.
The former movie mogul still faces 10 charges. He's due back in court next month. Let's bring back Judge Chris and Terry Austin to discuss this minor legal victory for Harvey Weinstein. Terry, even though this charge and this alleged victim's accusations are thrown out, could the prosecution still use these allegations against Weinstein?
It's possible, Brian, but I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, the judge could allow it, but what the judge has to decide here, is it more probative than it is prejudicial, and whether or not it should be excluded. And we know that under 404, that this type of evidence is only going to be included if we show that it had something to do with motive or intent. And I don't think that that's going to happen here. And the other thing is, obviously, we have 10 other victims who will be ready, willing, and able to testify because their claims are in the case. So I don't think we're going to see evidence of this additional witness or victim who has now, her claim has been thrown out.
Yeah, that's a typical 404B argument. We're always talking about the anagram that we use, or the acronym is MIMIC. Motive, intent, mistake or lack thereof, or common scheme of plan. It could be one of those things, but we'll have to wait and see. Judge Chris, part of the reason the judge threw out the case was that the prosecution did not tell the jury this alleged crime happened outside of the statute of limitations. How serious a mistake is that?
Well, if there were only one charge, it'd be a real serious mistake. But in the grand scheme of things, with all those other charges, it's not going to end up having him spend 1 day less in prison.
Yeah, there's still plenty of allegations, plenty of alleged victims there. Just will be one fewer charge. So we'll see how that case continues as it progresses in Los Angeles. Thank you both. Now to Connecticut, where a 22-year-old is accused of stabbing and murdering her grandmother and her grandmother's boyfriend. Soaking wet with water and blood is how an officer described Harley Swolls when they arrived at the scene of the crime. The officers responded to a call from a neighbor who reported disturbing sounds coming from the home. Victims 63-year-old James Bell and 72-year-old Mary Rach were found with multiple stab wounds to their necks and backs. Swolls is charged with 2 counts of murder in connection with the stabbing, but is claiming self-defense. Coming up on Law and Crime Daily, is Robert Durst now pointing the finger at an alternative suspect for the murder of his best friend? Plus, a jury's verdict for a man convicted of shooting a sheriff's deputy at point blank. Will it be life in prison or the death penalty for Stephen Wiggins? Find out next. Welcome back. A Tennessee man is sentenced to death for killing a sheriff's deputy and lighting his body on fire.
And upon the verdict of the jury finding you, Stephen Joshua Wiggins, to be guilty of murder in the first degree as charged in the indictment, and upon further the verdict of the jury fixing the punishment as death.
In less than 2 hours, a jury voted Stephen Wiggins deserves to be executed.
It is therefore ordered that you shall be put to death by lethal injection in the mode prescribed by law.
Wiggins was convicted of the murder of Dickinson County Sergeant Daniel Baker. Wiggins shot Baker 3 times, stole his police cruiser, then set fire to it, with Baker still inside.
We got him.
Baker's wife says she's relieved she never has to worry about Wiggins being released from prison.
You know, it's been a long journey, that feeling that he's going to be held accountable.
Wiggins was also convicted of impersonating Baker after the murder, responding to radio traffic saying 10-4, 1 in custody. As Wiggins was taken away from the courthouse, deputies made that same call over the radio. This time, it was Wiggins that was in custody.
In order to set Sergeant Daniel Baker, 500, have one in custody from this location. En route to death row.
Here with us to discuss the death sentence of Stephen Wiggins is Judge Susan Chris and co-host Terry Austin. Terry, are you surprised that none of the defense's arguments got even one person to go against the death penalty, or does this make perfect sense?
Well, I was a little surprised, but it does make perfect sense, Brian. No doubt about it. The defense attorney did a great job pleading for Wiggins' life, but the jury got it right. They looked at these 5 aggravating factors, and each and every one they said applied here. They said it was a violent felony that he had beforehand. They said it was especially heinous, atrocious, and cruel. They said he tried to avoid prosecution when this murder occurred. They said that it was with a law enforcement officer, which we know it was a law enforcement officer. And also they said that he knowingly mutilated the body after the body was dead. So the jury thought long and hard about this, and they said that each of these factors occurred and that all of these aggravating factors outweigh the mitigating factors, and they sentenced him to death.
Well, Terry thinks they thought about it long and hard. I definitely would agree with the hard part, but Judge Chris, you've presided over a lot of trials, little over an hour to convict, under 2 hours to sentence. When you look at the facts of this case, does that surprise you?
The guilt part didn't, because they really didn't contest the guilt. There was no question that this wasn't a whodunit. He did it, and he admitted he did it. But the punishment, there was so much compelling evidence about his mental health and his abusive childhood and extreme abuse and brain injury and brain damage. I thought it would give them pause to at least talk about it a little bit longer.
Yeah, but not a single pause, just 2 hours, less than 2 hours to convict. Terry, I would have thought maybe someone had a family member with mental health issues, someone had a family member who went through young abuse. That would have given them pause, but that didn't happen here, right?
That's right. Just one person really could have stopped this whole death sentence, but I think that each of them agreed with the others that, yes, this was a death sentence case.
Absolutely. That was probably a very quick agreement. As I said, it only took under 2 hours. Thank you both for contributing. When we come back, where was Robert Durst the night of his best friend's murder? A phone call that possibly puts a mystery person in the house the night that Susan Berman died. Now to California, where real estate heir Robert Durst takes the stand to tell his new version of what happened in December 2000. 3 deaths: Kathy Durst, Morris Black, and now Susan Berman. Prosecutors say all 3 have one common factor: Robert Durst. While the real estate heir maintains his innocence, he is now on trial for the murder of his best friend, Susan Berman. Berman allegedly knew information about his missing wife, Kathy. On the stand, Durst now says he had vacation plans with Berman that December, putting him near the scene of the crime.
Had you made plans before all this to spend Christmas with Susan Berman?
Yes.
What were your plans for Susan Berman and Christmas?
I was going to meet her on December 22nd. And we were going to do a staycation in Los Angeles. She wanted to do all the things that tourists do when they go to Los Angeles.
Durst then goes on to describe a phone call between him and Berman, potentially putting someone else in the house the night that she was murdered.
And twice she interrupted our conversation to talk to somebody.
Did you hear who she was talking to? Did you hear anybody else?
No.
Did you hear what she said?
No.
And before Durst was on the trial for the murder of Susan Berman, he was also accused of the death of his Texas neighbor, Morris Black, a crime he has since been acquitted for. Durst originally fled to Texas to escape media attention and disguised himself as a woman, leading to this peculiar line of questioning from the defense.
How did you keep it on? How did you keep it from falling off?
Just a roll. A rope.
You may answer.
Wigs come with a rubber liner on the inside, and as long as you don't shake your head too vigorously, the wig tends to stay on.
Well, if you're jogging Your head's moving pretty vigorously.
We're getting a little bit off track now. I was curious about how the week's going.
So it wasn't relevant.
I was afraid to go.
Can you let your curiosity go for one more question?
All right.
How did you keep it on while you're jogging?
Well, I did.
Okay.
Excuse me while I adjust my hair just quickly. It's not a wig, I promise. Back with us is Judge Susan Chris, who probably dealt with similar questions given that she presided over the Morris Black case. Judge Chris, give us a glimpse into Durst's mind, the other woman we are hearing for the first time. Do you think this other woman is a real fact or made up? Or this other person, sorry.
Absolutely made up. For one thing, all these years, and he's never sold anybody before now. Second of all, he has to make somebody up. He has to explain how he could have written the note and found the body, but he's not the one who killed her. He has to have an explanation, and this is what he's come up with.
So, Terry, this is what he's come up with. We've got our very own residential Robert Durst expert, the judge who presided on his former case. Durst said that this person interrupted Berman a number of times. Do you think this could be an alternative suspect that the defense runs with? Are we going to hear from them again? Or do you think they'll just kind of let it lay and see what the jury decides?
Well, let's just say DeGurn is doing his job here. He is trying very hard to raise reasonable doubt. And he is putting in this person that, as the judge said, we've never even heard of before. And so if the jury believes that maybe someone else was in the room with Susan Berman, then in fact, that could be something that would raise some doubt. I don't know if it's reasonable doubt. The other inference that has been made throughout this trial is that maybe Susan Berman was killed by a mafia person because her father was involved in the mafia. I don't know how much evidence that has been put into evidence for this trial, but that's certainly a question that has come up, and maybe that will be argued at the end of the day. So we might just have one person there who thinks that somebody else could have done it. And as we saw, Durst can be very charming.
Well, we know that one person doesn't believe him for sure, and that's prosecutor John Lewin. Definitely expecting and excited to see that cross-examination. Thank you for joining us here at Law and Crime Daily. We'll see you next time as we discuss justice in America.